Nature is so beautiful, and I really wanted to try and capture it in my tank instead of using that fake plastic stuff you buy at pet stores because I don't really like how it looks. So we're starting out with an empty tank, and I'm just gonna clean it up because it's really dirty with some white vinegar, some felt, and some water and napkins. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm just gonna pour some of the vinegar onto the bottom, and I'm just gonna take my felt and scrub it. And you can see how effective this actually is. Ta-da! Nice and clean. And now we can get started on the background. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm using all natural materials. So I'm showing you here how I got the bark, and all I'm doing is I'm just going around my tree here and I'm picking off any loose bark, which there will be plenty of, and you just kind of wiggle around and it comes right off. And if you don't want to do this, then I'm sure if you go to like a park or something and there's gonna be loose bark or falling off bark on the bottom next to the trees, so you can just pick that up from the ground. And I mean, either way, it's not hurting the tree. And yeah. So you can see my helper here. That's so helpful. Thank you, baby. So here you can see all the bark I ended up gathering, and I got some really big pieces, and I got some medium-sized pieces, and I also got some really tiny pieces, which was good because you want variation with this project. So for the rocks, I just went to my backyard and just picked up any rocks that caught my attention and then used those for the project. But you can go to the craft store and buy pretty rocks, but for me this is what worked. Also, I wanted to not spend too much money on this project because I wanted to show that you don't need $1,000,000 to make something look like $1,000,000. So all the materials here I'm using, I just gathered straight up from Mother Nature, except for obviously the plastic that we're gluing everything onto, and the silicone, which you will see in a second here. This is some coconut that I ate, and then I decided it would look really cool in the background, and I saved it. And it does look cool in the background. I don't regret it. So this is the silicone that I'm using. It's just some normal Windows silicone, and I did read on the back and it's non-toxic once it's cured. So if you want to keep it safe, use some Aquarium silicone. This is the plastic that I'm using. It's just some plastic that I bought at the fabric shop. It was only $1 a yard, and this stuff is usually used on tabletops to protect the tablecloth from stains or water spillage. It's also used in upholstery to child-proof dining room chairs, but I actually bought this to use it as really cheap pond liner, which I will probably do a video on really soon. So stay tuned for that if you want to see how I made this really cheap pond. So for the tank, I just measured the back panel of my tank here, and this was the background that I had set up originally. And you can see here all the rocks were concentrated in the middle, and then I got lazy with the sides and I never finished this, and I had to cover them up with some banana tree leaves. But instead of starting over, I'm just going to continue this background here, and this background really held up nicely. I had it running for a year and didn't have any wear and tear, and none of the rocks fell off, which is good. And you can see the back here of it, and all the rocks are nicely sticked in there. So for the actually making it, obviously I'm not starting from scratch, I'm just adding on to the one that I already had. But basically all you have to do is get your rocks and play around with them, where you want them to go, where you want them to be very nicely tight together, like in the middle. The tighter they are to each other, the better it's gonna look. But you have to be careful not to use too heavy rocks, because if your rocks are too heavy, then yeah, you might break your aquarium glass. Basically, to do this, you just take your rock and you add a dab of silicone to the back and you just stick it onto the plastic. It's that simple. And you're gonna keep going until it's covered or mostly covered, or you're happy with it. So for the coconut, I decided to make some caves out of them so the fish could have somewhere to hide or just to go into. And this was the hardest part for me. I mean, this is fast forwarded really fast. I don't know how much actually is fast forwarded, but this took me like 20 minutes. I filmed this for like 20 minutes, and yeah, but the hardest part was actually deciding how I wanted them to go on there. And then I had to silicone some of the pieces together, and then I had to silicone those to the bottom onto the plastic, and I was having a really hard time with this. I'm not sure why. It's not rocket science, but whatever the reason is, just be patient. And yeah, I actually used a rock there on the side just to hold it at an angle. But don't worry, that big rock next to it is not the finished product. So this is what the background looks once I decided I had glued enough rocks into it, and I was happy with it. So for the side panel, I just did like a rough layout of the bark, and there's really no wrong way to do this. You're just piecing it together like a puzzle. And I went ahead and cut a side panel piece of plastic to glue the bark down onto. And I'm not going to show the entire process of me gluing this together because it did take a really long time, and I didn't want to film the whole time. And if I would have filmed, then this video would be like even longer than what it already is. So yeah, you're just going to see me here glue down some of them down. And it's a little harder for them to stay here because my piece of plastic is really wrinkled because it's an old piece of plastic. But obviously if you're using a new flat surface, then it should go a lot smoother. But basically you're just fitting together the pieces like mosaic. If you have experienced mosaicing or you know what that is, then this is basically what this is. And yeah, it's a little time consuming, but it looks really cool afterwards in the end. And it's actually my favorite panel from the background. I like the side panel even more than the back panel. So this is it once I finished it, and then this is the leftover pieces that I had, which you can use for another project or whatever you want to use it for. And I'm just gonna leave it here to dry overnight. So the next day, it's time to actually apply the background onto the tank, and it's really exciting. This was my favorite part because I spent all that time making the background pieces and I just couldn't wait for them to go on. So basically I just kind of laid the background piece over the top of the tank just to make sure it actually fits in there, but I already knew it fit in there. So yeah, I'm just applying the silicone onto the back panel or the back piece of glass, and I concentrated it mostly on the sides and the center because that's where most of the force will be applied. And then I literally just laid everything on top of that. Well, I literally just laid the piece of plastic on top of that and I pressed it down nicely. And yeah, that's all it's that simple to actually apply this onto your tank, and then you're just gonna leave it to dry for a few hours. And this is what it looks like from where I was standing. And yeah, let it dry for a few hours. So now I'm gluing the side panel here, and I actually had a really hard time gluing this one because I didn't measure properly the plastic, so it's bigger. Hi guys. So it's bigger than the actual piece of glass, which was really stupid and it was my fault. So make sure before you actually start gluing stuff onto your plastic that it actually fits inside of your glass. So you can see here that it's sticking out there on the side, and I'm trying to push it down but it's not pressing, and then it started to lift on the other side. So yeah, it was not pretty, but and in the end I made it work. And yeah, I'm just going to leave that to dry a few hours, actually overnight, because this was really late in the morning. And then the next day after that, I stood everything up and I went ahead and turned on the lights of the tank so you can get a better view of it, and it was really cool. I really like it. I was so excited and I couldn't wait to add some water and the rest of the decor. So here you can see me trying to sink some driftwood, which you will see later on that it was taking too long and I did end up waiting the whole time. And here I'm just washing some sand. So then a few days later, I had the sand in the tank and the driftwood siliconed to the bottom, and then I started to fill it up. I decided to go ahead and fill it up and then get the filter running, and yeah. You can see the water is really cloudy because I didn't do a very good job cleaning the sand, but yeah, it just, no matter how many times I rinsed it off, it just kept fouling up the water, and I just got desperate and I just decided to screw it and let the filter take care of it. So this is what it looked like after it was all filled up, and I'm just gonna leave it running overnight. I'm gonna leave the filter running overnight, and then I'm gonna add some fish and snails later on.
So it's been about 18 hours, I want to say, since I filled it up, and the water got pretty clear. You know, I could see the background and everything, but I wasn't happy with it. So what I did was I emptied out half of it and I replaced the other half with water from my pond. And obviously the filter media is filter media from my pond's filter, so I don't actually need to cycle my tank. You know, like right now I can go ahead and add right now the inhabitants, which I am about to do. I'm gonna add some apple snails. I'm gonna add 2 adults and I think it's 5 babies. I'm just gonna add a couple of feeder fish that I have for my turtles. Nothing fancy. Maybe in the future I'll add some nicer fish, but for now I'm happy with that. And yeah, I forgot to mention that obviously right now the water is still really cloudy because I just now finished adding the water, so yeah, obviously it's not gonna look very pretty or clear, but it's not gonna harm the fish or the snails.
So these are the little baby apple snails that I'm gonna be adding in the pond. I was gonna say pond, oh my god. These are the little baby apple snails that I'm gonna be adding in the tank right now. And they're pretty big for some babies. Obviously they're about like 4 months old. But yeah, they're ivory apple snails. This is mom and dad. Mom right here at the top and dad in the bottom. And they're pretty big. They're actually really big. But this is pretty much full grown for apple snails. I don't think they'll grow much more. They're really dirty right now. But they're actually white, except, yeah. I don't know why they're so dirty. Their water parameters haven't been dirty, but whatever. These little guys actually are the ones that reproduce all the babies. So yeah, I'll be back with the fish. And these are the fish that are gonna be going in with the snail. And they're so tiny and cute, and yeah. Well, this one's really big. This one is pretty much full grown. And these are younger, but the babies are really tiny, like this tiny, and they're so cute. But yeah, I have no idea what they are or what they're called or nothing, so I'm sorry. If you wanted to know what kind they are or you know what kind they are, then leave it down in the comments for anyone who wants to know. Please and thank you. So yeah, now I'm gonna add the animals into the tank. So stay tuned for that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so it's now been about 24 hours since the last footage. So yeah, everyone's pretty much settled in. There's a snail right there, fish, more fish. There's a baby snail right there, and there's, I think that's the dad, and another baby. And I'm just gonna do a close-up really quick. But everything's holding down nicely, and I forgot to mention that I know there's some footage of me soaking some driftwood, but I ended up just siliconing it down to the tank because it was taking way too long to sink. And I know some people wait about a month or even more, but I'm not patient enough for that. Like, I wanted this set up already. So I just siliconed it to the bottom, and yeah, works like a charm. So yeah, now I'm just gonna do a close-up of the tank. So here's the sand, and it looks really cool. Well, it looks really cool in person. There's like a bunch of different colored tiny rock particles.
And this is the piece of driftwood that I siliconed to the bottom. And it's really old. It had been in my backyard for about a year or so, and it started developing all this texture, and I really like that. So yeah, and I don't know why this happened, but this happened just last night. I don't know if you can see that, but there's like, I don't know what that is, but there's something growing on it, and it looks really weird, but at the same time I really like it, so I'm not really gonna scrub it off. I'm just gonna leave it there. And there's a baby snail right there. And here's the background, and there's a fish there, and there's a snail back there, and there's some little caves there for them to go into. And yeah, that's the update 24 hours later. I don't know if I'm gonna end the video here, but if I do, then I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching, and if you like this video, please thumbs up. And if you would like to see more videos from me, then subscribe to my channel because there will be more coming in the future. So yeah.
So if anyone does decide to try this out, then I would really like it if you would add me on Facebook and tag me on your pictures of your backgrounds that you made using my video.